cybersecurity. And I believe there are a few lecturers also there. So hopefully it will be insightful to all of you. Okay. So here is the agenda for today. I'm going to be talking about why cybersecurity is suddenly important to the whole world, right? And what are the trends? How are the attackers thinking? How are the defenders working to make sure that we keep the cyber criminals out of our way? Then I'll give some fundamentals about security, because many of you are engineers, some of you may be doing computer science engineering. So I want to give you some tips on how you can start thinking about cybersecurity. I also will touch upon what skills you need to have, what mindset you need to have to pursue a cybersecurity career, and some of the opportunities that you have. And then we'll end with a summary and call for action. We will take some questions in the end. Okay. So here is a view of where the world is going to be in the next few years, right? So if you look at what's happening, we live in a world where everything computes. So what does it mean? Your watch is computing, your fridge will start computing, your light lamps will start computing. Everything will have a small computer embedded. And this is possible because a lot of technology changes have happened over the last few years, where we can, in the size of your fingernail, just look at your fingernail, we can embed a computer with 1 gig memory RAM, right? And we can run a Linux operating system there, and we can do a lot of cool things. So that is how the technology has changed over the last few years. It's very, very cheap to embed these computers inside your smart TV or washing machines, or even your lamps. And that will make almost, right, watches. Means I have my smartwatch wearing, and many of you may have your smartwatch. Everything is getting digitized. And that's one of the main things that's happening in the industry, right? The second important thing that's happening is everyone and everything will be connected. So what does it mean? So these things start from, let's say, smart city, right? Even your webcam that's monitoring the city is connected to the internet, because they want to take out all the live feeds. They want to make sure, they want to try and see if any crime scenes are happening. They want to analyze the visual feeds that are coming from the camera to see if any action has to be taken. They are trying to do image recognition and trying to catch criminals. These things are happening in developed countries like maybe China or US. So all these things, right, that I'm talking about is getting connected to the internet. So what does it mean? Right? For example, my watch is now connected to the internet, and I'm giving a presentation. Most of my information around my heartbeat, etc., is going to the cloud, right? And I'll talk about what is cloud and what is making all these things happen. You heard of 4G, right? 4G was a big revolution, high speed, all mobile phones got connected. You have heard of Wi-Fi, right? And there are a lot of such wireless protocols and wire protocols that are coming up, including 5G, which will open up, which will really open up the world for connectivity, because a lot of devices can be connected at a higher speed. So that's the revolution and evolution happening in the technology industry. Everything will be understood. So what does it mean? So all these data coming from your watches, lights, fridge, smart TV is being analyzed, right? You might have seen that as soon as you log in, sometimes you get some recommendations in Google. When you log into Yahoo, you get some advertisements which are kind of meant for your personalized usage or preferences. How is this thing done? Because the data is collected from everything we do. It is analyzed using artificial intelligence and machine learning, and to generate insights. And these insights or intelligence is used to make your life better, right? And that's where artificial intelligence, and if you're a computer science graduate, it's becoming very, very popular. So what does this all mean, right? If you look at what it all means is data is the new oil, which means that having data coming from you, having data coming from all these devices is extremely important, right? Let me give you an example of farming. So if we have sensors, soil sensors, right? We have climatic sensors. And if we can tell the farmer that your crop has to be cut in the next 2 days, please arrange robots or people to make sure that your crop is cut, because you'll get optimal output. And we help to optimize water, etc. This is all the concept of smart farming, smart agriculture, right? So what happens is this data is very important, and we can actually improve the efficiency of farmers, etc. Similarly, if you look at a manufacturing plant, there are a lot of complicated machines, right? And these machines have to keep running all the time and needs to be serviced. And if we get these data coming out of these machines and then we analyze and can predict when the machine is going to fail, it will help to improve the life of the machine as well as do many things. So the data is becoming extremely important, right? And data is becoming very precious, and they call it as data is the new currency, data is the new oil, because oil is very precious, right? You are seeing 100 rupees diesel and petrol price right now because it's very precious. So when something is precious, what happens? Right? It obviously attracts cyber criminals, and cyber criminals want to make money to see if we can steal this data and sell the data. Can I damage the data and maybe ask for ransom, etc., etc. That's exactly what is happening in the current world, right? It's a very connected world. A lot of importance to data, and there's a lot of importance to data which the criminals are trying to make use of and do bad things. So you have to picturize the whole thing, and that's why cybersecurity is becoming important. Another thing that you might have noticed, right? Because of these data and apps, right? Previously, in my generation, if I have to call a taxi, I have to take my phone, dial somebody, they will pick up and call a taxi office, and I would have got a taxi. Now I can do it on my fingertip. All of you have digital wallets, Paytm, Google Pay, etc. So money which was in physical form is now in digital form. Everything is getting digitized. So, and when you have a connected world, right, the criminals can steal your data, right, steal your money, which is in digital form. So that is why you need to take extremely, I mean, you need to take cybersecurity extremely important. And that's where I think one of these sessions today hopefully will give you more exposure of what's happening and why cybersecurity is a great thing to pursue in your careers. So that was from, means I tried to simplify it so that you guys can understand from a personal viewpoint of view. But if you are in a big company, right? Let's say you're working for Google, Facebook, or HP, or any other company, this is what we are trying to see, right? Even if you're in a college, big college, where you have your own IT applications, etc., this is what we are going to see. Now, if you see what's happening, many of you might have heard about the cloud, right? So what is cloud? So in simple terms, if you want storage, if you want compute, and you want to run some experiments, you don't want to buy a laptop, or you can't afford to buy a big server, right, with a lot of memory and CPU. You can swipe your credit card, go to the cloud, reserve some hi-fi computer system for 10 hours, do your experiment and come out, right? You just have to pay based on your usage, and that is cloud, right? You can get compute, storage, networking on demand for the amount of time you need, and pay per use, rather than spending, let's say, 1 lakh rupees to get all these equipments and do your experiments, right? And that's what cloud is. And you have Amazon, Google, Microsoft coming up with Google, and maybe as students you may have a free account in Amazon also, right? You would have tried creating a virtual machine, etc., etc. So what is happening with cloud is that when you are a large company and you are trying to use all these clouds, your data is actually moving to the cloud. So some data is staying in your data centers, where you store all your server storage, networking devices. Some data is stored in the cloud. And then we have this mobile devices, right? Most of us have mobile devices, mobile apps, and we start doing everything with the apps. And data is also stored in your mobile device, right? The BOID stands for bring your own device. So what's happening now? Previously, maybe 10 years back, if you had studied, you had to come to college without your mobile phones. You have to go to your labs, go to some Unix workstation or a PC, do your experiments, run your programs, and then you log out and come out of the system, and you don't have access to the systems. Now what happens is you have mobile phones, you can connect your college, university websites and do a lot of things. And when your devices are getting connected to the same network, suppose you have not updated your mobile phone with the latest patches, right? It can have a malware, it can have viruses, and this virus can try and infect the network, and it can, from that network, it can go to other devices, right? And these are challenges that are happening because of the enormous amount of devices that are getting connected to the internet and these cloud, where you can just store the data and everything is easy to get new compute, new storage, etc. security is becoming extremely complicated, right? Security is becoming extremely complicated. Security is becoming distributed. We are living in a very distributed world. And this is making cybersecurity very, very challenging, right? If you look at how many devices are connected to the internet using our mobile phones, right? We have roughly, let's assume 7 billion people in the world. Each one of us or some of us have mobile phones, laptops, etc., etc. Approximately, let's assume that 12 billion devices are connected to the internet right now. In the future, it is expected to be 50 billion devices, right, of all form factors. It could be a mobile phone, it could be a laptop, it could be an iPad, iPod, everything will get connected. And when you have this kind of system where different operating systems, some devices are not patched, one vulnerable device, one bad device can actually cause a lot of issues in your network, right? And that's where we need to be worried about, and that's where cybersecurity is becoming extremely important in the modern world. Okay, so I'll give some more examples to make sure that you understand the importance of cybersecurity and how it is perceived, right, in the modern world. So now I think we talked about cyber criminals, right? So why do they do whatever they do, right? In the sense they want to steal money, they want to do bad things. So I'll give an example. So crime categories falls into multiple areas. One is military and intelligence attacks, right? Let's assume India and Pakistan. We are always worried about what Pakistan may do to India. And we want to make sure that we collect some intelligence. And if everything is getting digitized, even in Pakistan, right? Everything is now done and stored in a laptop. Previously, people used to keep papers, and you have to send agents out maybe to retrieve the data. You've seen all these movies, right? Raw movie. Recently, I think I saw one more movie. You saw Family Man. Right? Go and watch Family Man, and if you're 18 plus, and you'll see all the things that happen between two countries. So what happens? We want intelligence, and now if you want to get those intelligence, you have to do cyber criminal. You have to hack into the system and get the data, right? And that's happening all over the place, right? Pakistan is doing that to India, China, India. All nations are trying to see what other nation is trying to do, and there is some kind of you can say cyber attacks happening because to steal military and intelligence attacks. The second type of attacks are business attacks, right? Let's assume you are Coaxin, right? Coaxin, we have come up with our own vaccine made in India, and we know how to do that vaccine, right? And that formula is stored in one of the computers. Now, if somebody steals that formula, and then maybe let's assume China, right, steals that formula, they can manufacture Coaxin, and all the money that India spent to invent Covaxin is gone because somebody stole that IP. It is called intellectual property, and created their own Covaxin, right? So we need to start worrying about it. Every business will have their own intellectual property, and we need to protect it, right? And that's where there are attacks happening to steal the IP. For example, let's say you are in the networking company. Let's say HPE. HPE has got routers, right? We do a lot of innovations on routers, switches, etc. And if some company from one nation steals all the R&D work that we have done, and then they clone a router, right? The money is gone. The nation is doomed because we could have made money as a country, but the other country is now making money because they manufacture it and sell it, clone it, and we lose money, right? So that's where we need to secure our IP. Financial attack, right? I want to steal money from your bank. So this is very, very common. Get money, and I'll talk about some of the attacks. Grudge attack, right? Let's assume, I'll give an example, right? We had the farmer movement, and maybe certain community did not like the farmer movement. And what happens in a grudge attack is that maybe you hack into their websites and steal their information, or you go and deface the website. You might have seen this, right? When you go to a website, sometimes you say you are hacked, and they give some messages, etc., etc. That's an example of grudge attack. Terrorist attack, right? Terrorists also want to destroy a country. Terrorists want to destroy organizations, so want to destroy economy along with people. So you need to be worried about what can happen because of a terrorist attack. There is something called thrill attack, right? There are kids, 14-year-old kids who are you can say excited about cybersecurity. They just use some tools, get into a system, and they feel they get the thrill when they hack into somebody's workstation or some computer, right? And this used to happen previously. a lot, but you have to be very careful, right? There are these kinds of attacks also, and if you get caught now, you will be in prison. So don't ever get into any kind of thrill attacks, but that's also something that's happening in the real world right now. And the last but not the least, the privacy violations, right? Privacy is becoming an important thing. If you want to know what is privacy in a simple terms, it's about making sure that you control what data you share, and you make sure that your data is not misused, right? So for example, how many of you have felt when you are doing some Google and next day you get an advertisement very similar to what you were thinking or you are Googling? How many of you have felt that when you're talking to your friends, let's say, I mean, Alexa, I don't know, right? Alexa is listening all the time, or you're thinking, you're talking about something, and then suddenly the next day you get some advertisements, right? So if you are seeing that, that means that you have given permission in your mobile phone for your microphone to be tapped, etc., etc., and something wrong may be happening, right? Your privacy is invaded. Example, right? Let's say you could send a mail to your friend saying that I'm having a headache, and suddenly you start seeing medicines popping up for headaches, right? You know, that means even the mails, when you use these public accounts, may be looked at, and a profile about you may be analyzed, right? And you don't know that. That's an exactly a breach of privacy. And you have malwares, right? Viruses that can switch on your webcam at a wrong time, right? And you have to be very careful. That's where how you keep your laptop, mobile phone is extremely important. And this also invasion of privacy. I do cyber stalking. When you have a Facebook account, I start stalking you, and all these things are becoming common problem in the cybersecurity landscape, right? If you look at these are the crime categories, who is doing these attacks, right? The attacks are done by nation state sponsored groups. So when I say nation state, it is, let's assume Pakistan is sponsoring, government is sponsoring people to go and steal information from India. That's called nation state sponsored, which means that the wars previously used to be fought, right, through guns, army, navy, and air, right? Now they say wars are fought in the cyber world, because if I can steal data, right? If I can, let's say your electric grid is connected to internet to optimize your electric grid. If I can destroy your electric grid and you don't have electricity, if Mumbai is down, right? There is a blackout in Mumbai for many hours, including the stock exchange. That will bring down the economy. So the wars are now being fought in the cyber world, and these are done by nation state sponsored groups, the government sponsored groups, right? Then there are advanced criminal groups who have a lot of money, who want to steal data from different people, different organizations. So that there is that group. And there are single criminals, right? Just like how robbers are, right? You have group robbers who group up and do dacoity, right? You have cyber criminals who are alone and who do rob the houses. So similar way, in the cyber security world, you have all kinds of people, including terrorists, hacktivists, and script kiddies. Script kiddies are kids, right, who write some scripts trying to attack just for the thrill sake, right? And you have all kinds of threat attacks. And attacks can come from different origin, right? So for example, we always think, let's say you are in your college, right? And somebody wants to steal information about your college research. So you think the people from outside want to steal the information from the college. That's external attacks, right? But there could be people inside your college who may want to steal your research. These insiders could be people who are innocent, who click on a link, infect your network with malware, and then your data is gone, right? So the insiders, or these could be disgruntled employees. Disgruntled means I am not happy with my college and I give away something, right? So insider attacks are also something that you need to look at. And the last important thing that is changing in the cybersecurity world is supply chain attack. So let me give you an example. So where are your laptops manufactured? Right? Most of the laptops are manufactured in, obviously, China, right? China, Taiwan, most of them are in China. Where our defense is using a lot of servers, storage devices to store all our important information, right? Our defense is using mobile phones to talk to exchange information. Where are these mobile phones manufactured? Mostly in China. Now, what happens if let's assume that the Chinese government want to I'm just giving an example, right? Hypothetical example, that they want to spy on Indian citizens. They can just put one app before when they send out the phones by default, and then all the data from your mobile phones may be going to China, and they will be analyzing your data, right? So that is what's scary. And I'll give you another example. Let us say you have your laptop, it's manufactured in China. It doesn't come and land on your in your house just like that, right? It goes through in a truck, it goes to a large distribution center in China. From there, it is shipped. It comes to, let's say, Mumbai. From Mumbai, it goes to some big distributor and then retailer, and you buy from the retailer. In between, if somebody wants to tamper your laptop and infect a malware into your operating system that's already installed, they can do it. And that attack is also called supply chain attack, right? We need to be extremely careful because when India wants to be the digital world, the digital country, right? And we are trying to come up with a lot of initiatives on digital India, digital infrastructure. If we can't trust the supply chain, we will be in trouble, right? And the trouble is not now. Let's assume the relationship between our neighbors become bad, and suddenly one day you will have all our laptops going blank, right? And when maybe we are supposed to go on a warlike situation, and then suddenly nothing works, right? You are dead. So that is where India is investing in Make in India initiatives, right? We want to make sure that we make our own products. All our government, IASC, CDAC, they're trying to come up with their own operating system, Linux operating system. We are coming up with our own processors. If you look at IIT Madras has come up with a new RISC-V-based processor called the Shakti processor, and we want to create our own IoT systems with our own hardware, software stack, so that we can trust. And that's where Make in India, Digital India, and all these initiatives are connected. Okay, so this is what is happening in the cybersecurity world right now. If you understand, we can't trust anybody, right? We have to be extremely careful in the modern world. Everything is getting digitized. It's very complex. People want to make money. People want to steal our IP, research data, grudge data, terrorist data. The world is getting divided. So cybersecurity becomes extremely important. Okay. And you have, right, all of you have a role to play, and I'll cover that aspect also. I'll give some examples, right? Some interesting facts. India is one in the top 10 attack countries in the world. So as Indians, if you look at our infrastructure, our defense systems, our companies that are working inside here, they are regularly attacked. Actually, it is between 4 and 6, right? And attacks come from all over the world, right? African nations, Asian nations, Europe nations, everyone is attacking everyone. But all the attacks are not succeeding because we have firewalls, we have all kinds of protection, right? Authentication, and until you crack the password, you can't get in. But they are trying to get into our systems and steal the data. I don't know whether you have heard of this ransomware, right? This is an interesting thing that has changed the whole cybersecurity landscape. So what is happening, as I said, is data is important. I'll give an example. All of you are, most of you, right, are digital kids. So you have been using mobile phones and laptop. And let's assume that you have stored all your data in your laptop, and it's very precious for you. One day, a cyber criminal logs into your machine because you have a weak password, or you went into a site where you clicked on a link and a malware got infected. It will encrypt all your data. When I say encrypt, it will just, let's assume that it will change the data to some format, and it will say that give me 1,000 rupees or 2,000 rupees. I will decrypt the data for you. Otherwise, I'll destroy the data, or you will never be able to look at the data. And you have all your project reports, research reports, your childhood photos, right? All your college day photos, etc. What will you do, right? You will think, okay, it's better to pay the 1,000 rupees, but I want my data back because you're not done backup, etc. So that is what is ransomware. Ransomware previously in movies you would have seen people kidnapping, right, small children and means asking for ransom. Now they go and steal data, encrypt the data, and they say, give me money, I will decrypt the data for you, otherwise you lose your data. Now, because data is precious, right, and many organizations, it is happening to individuals, it's happening to big organizations. This ransomware has taken over the world. Every single day you will have some attack of ransomware happening across the world, right? So this is again making cybersecurity very important because organizations need data, we need data, but the cyber criminals are making use of our love to data, right? Just like how ransom was being done by kidnapping people, right? Very interesting trend. The next thing is if you are in IT, right, you would have heard this term, right? Everything as a service. So what is happening is you want server, storage, networking, or you want anything, right? Everything is being delivered now as a service. And even crime is delivered as a service. I'll explain to you what it is, right? Suppose, let's assume that I am a hacker and I want to attack a SmartGaon. Right? SmartGaon is a website, and I want to attack SmartGaon. I know that SmartGaon has employed 20 people, and but I am not a means I'm not I don't have tools, etc. So what I can do is I can go to something called dark web, and I can give the SmartGaon email addresses and give them some money in bitcoins. Bitcoins is some currency. We don't have time to go there. And then they will conduct a phishing campaign, which means that they will send malware to all these 20 email addresses, and they will guarantee that 5 people will click on the email. So they will take care. So I don't have to do anything. I just pay them money and say, go and hack these people. They will do it for us, right? And let's assume that I don't have the capability to come up with a malware. Creating viruses is very tough. So I can give money and ask somebody in the web, right? I just go to the web portal and say, create this malware, and somebody is going to create a malware for you. So this is called as crimeware as a service, ransomware as a service. Everything is becoming a service. So it's easy for criminals now to get these tools and hack into the system, right? And this is again causing a lot of headaches to the people who are trying to defend against these criminals. So interesting point, right? One few other points that I want to mention: if you're computer science engineers, most software vulnerabilities are caused by small number of programming errors. You have, let's say you're a software engineer, you are expected to you write a program, and you expect that somebody should send a name, right? Through should enter a name in a web form, and you think the name cannot be more than 32 characters, so you allocate a buffer of 32 characters, char 32. But a hacker knows that you may have not done input validation. So what they will do is they will create a name with let's say 1,000 characters, and in the last few parts they will inject code. And because you are not doing input validation, right, you think the users are all good, they will always enter names within 32 characters. You don't do the input validation, and because of which your system starts misbehaving, right? You can actually inject malware, it can cause denial of service attack, it will crash, etc., etc. And many of the vulnerabilities, right, is happening because of this. And if you are a programmer going forward, please make sure that you understand this input. Don't assume that the users will always enter proper data, because your attackers will try to misuse. So that's very true. Even now, after 50 years of IT industry, right, 50 plus, we still make the same mistakes. And as engineers, as students, please don't make those mistakes, right? That's a key learning. And misconfigurations are still one of the main causes of breaches. What is misconfiguration? How many of you have the same password for everything? How many of you have written down passwords and just kept it somewhere, right? In a book or maybe in your mobile phone. And if that mobile phone is cracked, then all your passwords are cracked. Okay. Let's assume that how many of you have patched your mobile phone in the last 30 days and looked for some critical patches that may be impacting you and your mobile phone security, right? Not many. These are called misconfigurations, right? We make these mistakes, silly mistakes of having weak passwords, 0000 as your password of your mobile phone lock, right? And somebody just steals your mobile phone, your data is gone. So this is what is causing a lot of cybersecurity attacks, because we make simple mistakes during programming. We don't configure our passwords and everything in the right way. And then data is very precious and people are taking advantage of this data, right?
I5 generations or something.
Somebody on mute, or can somebody go on mute? I think I am hearing some.
Yep, Rahul, can you please take care of it? Someone is already made himself on mute. I think they is done now.
Cool.
So as you can start.
Yeah. So hopefully you're trying to get the picture right. I don't want to bore you with a lot of technical stuff. I'm trying to give you the picture so that you get motivated to become cybersecurity professionals. Okay, so I will explain some of the attacks, right? That's happened in the last few years. High-profile attack. If you look at the Nuclear Power Corporation of India Limited, 2 years back, there was an attack, right? And if people are is bold enough to attack Nuclear Power Corporation of India. Just imagine if this attack was successful, what damage it would cause, right? Our IP is gone. It can destroy the nuclear reactors or whatever it is there inside this, and it can really kill people, right? And this attack looks like was coming from a North Korean country, right? That's what it may not be true, but that's what investigation point to. If you Google colonial pipeline attack, this is very recent in US, 2 weeks back, around 2 weeks back. What happened was, see, you have this oil and gas, very important in a developed country because everybody uses car there. Right? You don't have public transport, etc. So what happened is there was a ransomware attack on the network where the pipelines were also controlled. So pipelines means these pipelines, when you send out the oil, right, you have to measure and do a lot of stuff. So when that attack happened, they had to shut down the pipeline, which means oil did not reach multiple states, right, at the proper time. It caused shortage and it caused panic, and a lot of bad things started happening. And this happened very recently, right? And this is the challenge. And what was the kind of ransom they paid? $5 million, right? $5 million is equal to 35 crores, right? And just for them to give back the key with which they encrypted data, because they wanted to return the data. So these are real, right? Whatever I'm talking about, ransomware, everything is real. Shamoon virus, Saudi Aramco is a big oil and gas company. And what happened was, on one day, 30,000 machines, right? Assume you have 30,000 employees in your college or, right, some organization. All their machines broke down on a single day, right? And what happened was, the systems were not even booting up. Right? Their bootloader was corrupted, etc. And to recover those machines, it took them few weeks. And if this happens now in this new digital world, right? Let's assume you are in a big company and it happens to you, and you don't have any productivity for the next 3 to 4 weeks. Your company may have to be shut down, because that's how the competition is. Everybody is competitive. And if you lose 3-4 weeks of your employees' time, you may lose out on your business. And that's where, again, right, I'm stressing on the importance of security. You need to make sure that your systems are secure, network is secure, everything is secure. Ukraine critical infrastructure attack, right? Ukraine and Russia had some issues. This is what is there in the Google articles. And as an attack, right, as a war kind of situation, they attacked the Ukraine infrastructure grid. There was no power. Some people lost life because when you're in a cold country, you don't have power, you can lose life. And when everything is relying on power, India can live without power because we are used to, right, with power cuts. But if you go to a developed country, their traffic systems, everything is controlled, and they need electricity. And if that goes for a toss, they don't know when they come to the intersection what they need to do, right? Like Indians, we can manage with our own because we know how to drive even in a messy condition, but they don't know, right? So it's very important, and that's how cyber wars are fought. This is interesting, Stuxnet virus. So Iran is a country that's looking at nuclear program. They want to come up with their new nuclear bomb, etc. Right? But countries like Israel and US don't want Iran to come up with a nuclear bomb, because the whole region will become very, very volatile and wars can happen. So what is happening here is, what happened was, Iran was hell-bent on coming up with some nuclear program, and they had these machines which was enriching uranium to create the nuclear program. So this is what is there, right? This is what happened. Israel and US created a malware. They infected these machines which was trying to enrich uranium. So there were centrifugal machines which was trying to enrich uranium. And the machine started to go at such high speed, right? The speed, and then suddenly stop, right? And then because of this, they destroyed the machine, and they didn't have to take a gun out to Iran to stage a war like what happened in Iraq, right? They just destroyed those machines, and now Iran couldn't do anything because of just a small virus that was infected into their machines, and it destroyed the infrastructure, right? That's what is happening in the real world. Brickerbot, 2 million IoT devices were destroyed because just like your cameras had default passwords, etc. So they just went in and completely destroyed, right? Wiped out the operating system, etc. And that is also something that has happened. And if you can Google, right, you will get these all these attacks, right? Sony attack. So Sony, as you know, right, really they're in the media. They come up with their movies, etc. So it seems they created a movie on a dictator, North Korean dictator, and the North Korean people did not, at least, right. So some people inside did not like it. So they attacked Sony and they took all the private chats of employees and their CEOs. They made it public, and they even took their movies that were unreleased and put it in some website, right, torrent like website, and everybody could stream the website. So if an unreleased movie is available as a pirated movie, they lose revenue. So there are different kinds of attacks, right? And this is why the world is becoming extremely important. And there are hundreds of credit card frauds, right? You keep getting, I'm pretty sure you get mails to say, click here, we will give you money, $50,000, you have won a lottery. All these are scams, right? Never fall into it. And these keep people, in spite of this, keep falling for these scams. Okay. So that's about the first section where I wanted to make sure that you understand the landscape of security, why security is extremely important, and how the world has changed in the last few years, and why it's complex, and we have to protect our nation, citizens, as well as our governments and the companies, right? And that's the main focus of cybersecurity right now. So in the next few minutes, I'll quickly go through some fundamentals of security. I'll be going a little bit fast now so that we can have some time for Q&A. This is a slogan, right? Let's say you're a computer science engineer and you just graduate, and I put you into developing software, right? If you start developing software with the same level of knowledge that you have right now, then they say that the first woodpecker that came along could destroy the civilization. If you built buildings the way programmers wrote programs, like maybe you guys, when you come out of the college, like I was also like in the same way, then a small woodpecker can destroy the civilization. So I don't know, right? This famous joke is there. There was professors were sitting in a plane, and the head of the department was also there, and the professors were talking about, and suddenly one of them realized that their students have developed the code to fly the plane, and every professor panicked, but their HOD was like cool. Then they asked the HOD, why are you cool? Because he said, right, if my students have written the code for this plane, I'm sure it will not take off, right? This is a classic joke. And I was like this, right? And as I graduated, we need to know what is coding, and that's our education system we need to change, by the way. But that's how, right? We need to make sure that we can't write such code. So if you want to improve security of anything, right? Let's say you want to send a private information to your friend. What do? You need to improve on these three things: confidentiality, integrity, availability. It is also called as CIA. What is confidentiality? Confidentiality is if I'm sending a message to Rohan, I don't want anybody in the middle to see that message, right? How do you do that? You encrypt the data properly, and only Rohan can decrypt the data. That means you know that nobody has seen the message. So that's confidentiality. Integrity means, right? Let's assume your professor has put all your marks and stored in a laptop or in a server, right? He doesn't want any unauthorized people to go and modify the marks. Suppose you hack in and you suddenly change the marks, right? That's unauthorized access to the data. Only professors or head of the department can modify the data. That's integrity, right? You want to ensure that system and state can be modified by only authorized users, which is your professors and HOD, not students, right? So that's the integrity. You need to do hashing. There is digital signatures that you do to make sure that you improve the integrity. Availability, right? You have heard of denial of service attack. So your website has to be available all 24/7 because it's important for, let's say, your college. So availability is to make sure that you have reliable access to resources, right? You need to protect from denial of service attack. If, let's say, 1,000 people log in, or if you send some bad packets and your application doesn't have a good way of rejecting those bad packets, right, you will just bring down the system because your resources will be exhausted. So that's availability. So as security engineers, when you're doing anything, you need to look to improve the confidentiality, integrity, and availability, right? And I talked about privacy. Privacy is about the right to be left alone. And we need to be very cautious about privacy. India is coming up with a privacy bill to improve all our citizens' privacy. Hopefully, it will get passed. So that's also important thing that you need to be aware of. Okay. A few more things that you would have experienced, but you may not know the definition. So other things that you need to improve is identification, authentication, and authorization. So what is identification? Suppose you log into your Facebook, right? You give your ID, right? Which is, let's say my ID is Suhas .s. So that unique ID identifies me in the Facebook portal. So that is identification. Every one of us have, let's say, passport, right? Passport number is our identification to some extent, right? Authentication. So identification is, who do you say you are? I say I'm Suhas as to Facebook. Authentication is, how do I know it's really you? So when Facebook, anybody can write Suhas.s, right? But how do I know it's really you? I need to know a secret that only I can know. I know, and when I give the secret out to Facebook, Facebook will know that okay, this is Suhas. And because the secret is only known to Suhas, I know that this person is the person that he is saying he is. So that is done through passwords. It is done through tokens. So sometimes, right, you have mobile app and you have a Google Authenticator. It gives you a token and then you can enter. So that's second factor authentication. Third factor is biometrics, right? If you have fingerprints, palm geometry, eye scan, all these things. Aadhaar. If you look at Aadhaar has taken our biometrics. And that's also another factor. So if what you know is password, what you are is biometrics, what you have is a token or a mobile phone, right? And when you combine two of these factors, it becomes two-factor authentication. When you combine more of them, it becomes multi-factor authentication. So when you log into the bank, you enter the password as well as, right, you get a OTP, which is registered to your mobile phone. So you should have your mobile phone as well as your password. That is a two-factor authentication. So most of the industry is now moving towards two-factor authentication because passwords can be cracked. As I said, right, all of you write your passwords. Most of you use the same password for everything. If one password is cracked, right, all your applications are out. But at least if you have a two-factor authentication and you enable it, right, without stealing your mobile phone, they can't do anything. So that's where two-factor authentication is important, right? Authorization is, once you log in to a system, what can you do, right? When I log into the system, maybe I can only view certain files, right? Let's say I talked about teachers and, right, let's say you also can log into the same server that your teachers have stored your marks, but you may not be authorized to see those files. Authorization is what you are allowed to do once you are authenticated, right? And you will hear the word role-based access, privilege, etc. Don't worry, but just understand these three concepts and you can build upon it as you go forward, right? And when you are developing products, let's assume that you are doing projects for your colleges. There are college teachers hopefully in this call, and if you are doing projects for, when you join a big company or when you join government or when you start your own company, you need to be worried about how you develop the product, right? You need to develop the product very securely. As I said, this input validation cannot happen. So all your employees, all our citizens should have education around why cybersecurity is important, what they should not do. And you need to have clear security requirements. You need to understand how an attacker can get in and steal the data, blah, blah, blah. You should do design reviews. You should do security testing, right? There are a lot of these concepts that you need to be aware of when you develop products, right? And you need to do code review. Suppose you write your code, you may not have done input validation. You might have used unsafe functions. So somebody good at security can review and say, don't use this function, use this function, which is better. So all these things are part of what we call as secure development lifecycle, where certain practices like testing, development, architecture review, requirements document, and training is done to make sure that as engineers, you can develop secure products. If you're developing for the government, you develop secure products. And even if you're developing small projects for your colleges, right, start following these things now only, because it will help you to become better engineers, and security should be part of every curriculum going forward, right? And you should all become security savvy by the time you graduate. So how can you get into the profession? Look at this on the right hand side. There are 3 million security professional shortage in the world right now. Okay. And 2 million plus jobs are vacant. They cannot fill, they're not able to fill these jobs because they don't have the skills. People don't have the cybersecurity skills right now. And when I say APAC, it is the Asia Pacific region, including India, Singapore, and all those countries. 2 million jobs. And that's where I think we should thank SmartGaon for arranging these kind of sessions to make sure people are aware of what opportunities they have. And these are the roles that you could take, right? If you become a cybersecurity engineer, you could become an architect, you could become a security engineer, looking at network security, configuring firewalls, and doing all those cool things to defend from attackers. You could become a security consultant if you are very knowledgeable and experienced.
You scared me.
If you are a security consultant, right? If you have a lot of knowledge, you can go to companies, tell them what they need to be doing, do risk management, etc. There are a lot of other things. If you are very experienced, right, let's say 20 years in the industry, you can become the chief information security officer. So this is the highest position that you can get in an industry where you manage all security decisions and security practices in your company, right? You can become a computer forensic expert, right? After an attack happens, you have seen these crime scenes getting quarantined and then DNA analysis being done, right? Similarly, when a crime happens in a computer, there are computer forensic experts who look at how did the attacker get in, how did they compromise the system, etc. So you can become a forensic expert, right? Very interesting job. You can become an auditor. You can go and audit companies. Fantastic job where you have to check their policies and make sure that they're doing all the things. And you can become penetration testers and ethical hackers, right? This is an interesting profession, and many more, right? There are 50, 60 roles. Different organizations have different roles, but what I wanted to say is there are enough opportunities depending on your interest to create something compelling in this domain. Ethical hackers, right? You might have heard this term, are in high demand. What ethical hackers do is, let's assume that let's assume, take your university. University has web app, web application, portal, and they may have a lot of other stuff. Ethical hackers test proactively, like hackers, to make sure that your environment is secure. So they do scanning. When they say scanning, right, they look at all open ports. If FTP is open, they try to see if weak passwords are configured. If your web application is there, they try to hack in. And as I said, right, input validation. There are a lot of different ways people can get into your through your web application, SQL injection, cross-site scripting. They do all these kind of attacks, and they proactively tell you that these are the issues that are found, so that you can fix and make sure that the real attackers, right, they cannot get in. So ethical hackers is a good profession, very highly in demand right now. And there you have vulnerability scanners, pen testers. The important thing that you need to remember is, when you are trying to become pen testers or ethical hackers, don't just go and hack into some system, right? Thinking you have the right. You don't have the right to hack into any system, right, which is not in your control. And you have to take permission and approval before you do anything adverse on any systems. Otherwise, you can get into trouble, right? So this is another profession. Some of you may get in the near future, but I just thought to share this information with you. What does it take to succeed as a security professional? So now you know all these opportunities are there. So what do you need to do as students? First thing, know the fundamentals, right? If you don't know how a computer is designed, if you don't know the networking fundamentals of all the protocols, the TCP/IP stack, there are a lot of concepts, right? Network security, Wi-Fi, wireless, Bluetooth. If you don't understand some of the cybersecurity basic skills like cryptography, you can never become a security professional, right? So if you don't know how a computer boots, right, you are not a computer science engineer, and you need to understand, because you are doing protecting computers, you need to know what goes in, right? And very important as students, whether you are in cybersecurity or not cybersecurity, doesn't matter. Please focus on how things work, right? And you need to have good grasp of security tools. So to become a good security engineer, right, there are a lot of tools already built, 600 thousands of tools. If you know how to use these tools and some common programming languages like Python, you can become a great security engineer. It's all about knowing which tool to use when. Okay. And reverse engineering and forensic analysis, if you're doing research, malware analysis, etc., these are very cool things for you to do, right? How actually people infect, and how they have manipulated the weakness in the system, etc. Have the right attitude. So one is the skill, right, which is the technical skill. The other is the attitude. Attitude makes a big difference, whether you're in security or non-security, right? In security, you have to learn continuously, because the attackers are always trying to get ahead of you. So you need to understand how the threat landscape is changing. and you have to keep pace with the threat landscape, right? It's exciting when you are in security, because every day is different, and sometimes you need to keep reading a lot just to be there to protect your organization, your country, right? When you have to think like an attacker. Sometimes if you're too good and think everything is positive, you can't think like an attacker, right? Security engineers, especially if you're a pen tester, need to think how an attacker can get in, right? Let's say you have your home, and you want to secure your home. You have to look at every aspect of your room, weakest link, how people can get in, etc., etc. And that's absolutely important. High level of discipline. So you should have, there are some certain things you need to do in the same way, processes, right? A has to follow B has to follow C. If that's laid out, you have to follow the process, and love what you do, right? If you start liking what you do, obviously you'll have the right attitude, and you can make a big difference, right? So what does it take to succeed as a professionals? Fundamentals and the right attitude. Okay. Avenues to develop your security skills. There are post-graduation courses in cybersecurity. IIT Kanpur, I think, recently offered, and many regional colleges, right? I think you should look at, depending on where you stay in India, take the opportunity. And I believe there are some teachers around here. Please have a basic cybersecurity course in every engineering, whether mechanical, hardware, software, doesn't matter. I think we need to have that kind of course, right? Basic course, maybe one grade, 2 grade, it doesn't matter. We need to have online virtual courses, right? Massive online courses. IBM SkillsBuild program has some courses. I know you guys may have access to it. So to take those courses, Udemy has a lot of beautiful courses for 300, 400 rupees when discounted. So look at the right time, and if you can spend 1,000 rupees and get 2 courses, pen testing, everything you can learn on your own. Attend some conferences if it is free. If you are interested to pursue security, cybersecurity career, there are a lot of good books. You can form a small community within your colleges and start learning about cybersecurity. Ensuring that you work with your friends, learn with your friends is the best opportunity. And you can pursue certifications, right? Suppose you graduate and you have a cybersecurity career, there are a lot of certifications that are available, like certified ethical hacker, certified cloud security professional, many more, right? Certified auditor. So you have to pay a little bit more money, but when you go through the certifications, your knowledge becomes pretty clear, right? Okay, so last 2 slides. Overall summary, we are living in a very competitive world, right? And everything is getting digitized. India is trying to go towards being a digital India. We have the Make in India initiatives because we want to protect our country from supply chain attacks, right? In this very competitive world where everything is getting digitized, data is becoming important, and security is a key focus area for our country, for the organization that you are working on, irrespective of your profession. And as a citizen, we need to be aware of security, right? And trained cybersecurity professionals will be in very high demand. So what do you do as students, right? As students, as teachers, as citizens, you need to be security savvy, right? And 3 things that if you can take away from this session. First thing is understand the cyber hygiene. How do you keep yourself protected? Strong passwords, patching your system, don't click on unnecessary link, don't browse unnecessary sites, right? Keep your family secure, never share your OTP, all the things, right? Just keep doing this basic things, right? Don't explore too much. And as a citizen, I think you need to protect yourself and your family. Develop cybersecurity skills. So if you are in engineering student, this one, start looking at, as I said, right, how do I improve my skills when I develop as a programmer? How do, as a professor, can I have new courses introduced for cybersecurity, right? So start building in this mind of security as an engineer. If you are an electronics engineer, there are security aspects in the electronics hardware side. You can do research, you can learn, etc. And the last part is explore cybersecurity as a profession, right? There's a lot of demand, there is a vacancy, jobs unfilled. So you can become a cybersecurity professional, help the nation, help the organization that you work on, right? And yeah, I think contribute to the human community so that we can defeat these bad people, right? And security is like a team sport. All players need to be on top of the game to fight the cyber criminals, right? One weak guy in the team can destroy. So we all need to work together to protect. And I will request you to look at security, at least the basic hygiene properly, and then start exploring other things. Okay. Thank you. I think I took maybe 5-10 minutes more because I wanted to keep it simple. I know students, right? You keep hearing to webinars. I tried my best to keep it simple and non-technical. Hope it was useful. Let's see if we can.
Indeed. Indeed, it
Thank
was
you,
useful,
sir.
Suhasji. It was really, really nice. And I like the way you started it from a very scratch level and took it to a new level, I must say. And the way you have explained about security vulnerability and the attacks that are happening and the actions that can be taken is really beautiful. So thank you very much, Suhasji. I'll go through the questions which students are raising now. So there is one common question which is come around 2-3 times is how to begin a career as a cybersecurity expert, or which path or which set of tutorials that they can read or study, and what sort of exams they should target in their career or in their study. So if there are some, if they go through like this, and how do they find out opportunities in this same field?
So right, I think I answered this question maybe towards the end of my presentation. So what I believe you should do is, when you take up a project, right, in your computer science, take up something around cybersecurity. Okay, do your courses. Do your courses in the sense, if your college has a course, take up that course. And as I said, know the fundamentals. And then when you and Udemy, as I said, 400-500 rupees, beautiful courses for 30 hours, pen testing, networking, security fundamentals. And you need to be extremely curious. Once you have those skills and once your mind is set, right, and you, as I said, right, you have the right attitude, you will get into cybersecurity professional. Because if you show that you are good, better than the rest of the people who have maybe other skills, you can apply for a cybersecurity in a cybersecurity company and get a job, right? Because you have done your practical projects during your schooling days, right? You have done your Udemy course, you have the right attitude, and that's how you start your cybersecurity career, right? You build your knowledge. And then, as I said, after you go, you can do your certifications. Just Google. I have given some pointers. You can do certified ethical hacking. You have to pay some money, but those will teach you advanced skills. But first thing is the basic skills, and practicing that during your college days. Okay. So again, there is no right answer, right? It's just that you need to be interested and you need to do the right things. And network with people. That's another thing that you guys have to do.
Yes.
Join a conference. For example, there is a student body for IEEE, cybersecurity governing body, right? Just join that. Look at all the things that are happening, 5G security, blah, blah, blah. And then you network with people. And once there is an opportunity and showcase that you are good, you will get a job. Okay. So it's all like you need to do all the right things.
That's absolutely right. And there's one important statement which you mentioned in your slide is to make a group. And if you make a group within your branch or within your class itself, you will find that similar interests will give you more knowledge. They will point you to some new courses as well. So that's something which is very nice in this case. There is one more question which has come is, can you please elaborate something about SQL injection attack?
Yeah, so that's interesting, right? Technical question. So SQL injection attack is, I'll give an example. Let's assume that you have a database application, right? Every application, when you log in, you create a student's portal, right? Where you'll tell which student joined when, interest, etc., etc., right? So you log in and you create a student record in a database, okay? And you have all the records. Now, what happens, what attackers do is, let's assume there is a username and a password. Okay, you have to enter username and password. So your validation is, if the username is in the table, right, I allow the access, right? So you take the username as it is and you make a SQL query, right? Select star from where. So you put the username and then you say. So now what happens is, the way SQL database is designed and the way these SQL queries are designed, people will not enter the username. People will enter some random characters with special escape characters, etc., to trick the SQL engine to return the username and password of all the students in the database, because you are not doing input validation. I'm trying to keep it simple. SQL injection is you have a database application, you don't do input validation, and you directly take the input that are entered in the form fields and create a database query. And because an attacker can manipulate the input, you are actually exposing more information and causing a lot of issues. That is SQL injection, right? You are actually injecting the query to give you more information and do bad things through escape characters, comments, etc. Okay, go and Google. I think there are a lot of information available.
Brilliant. There's one more technical question coming up. It's which is better, Kali Linux or Parrot OS?
See, if you're planning to learn pen testing, right? The most popular one is Kali Linux, right? It has got 600, 700 tools all installed. I talked about tools like, for example, Metasploit. There's a tool called Metasploit. It has all the exploits, right, that you can use to attack a system. Very powerful. So I would say Kali Linux for now, because that's what we use internally within HPE to learn and to also make sure that we understand what's happening and test our own systems.
Yep, that's really good. And next one is antivirus can help us protect our data in smart devices like smartwatches or other smart IoTs?
See, this is an interesting question, right? If you look at how antivirus works based on signature. Okay. So signature means, let's assume you download a file, and if there is a known virus with that signature, that file will have some, let's say some bytes, which tell you that there is a virus there. It will catch those it will catch those problems, right? If you have in your smart data devices, we don't have an antivirus because it is too small. But let's say your mobile phone, if you have antivirus, it can catch all those issues. But not all issues will be detected by antivirus, because there are a lot of other issues which antivirus will not know, because you don't store a file. You just inject packets, and the packet is in the memory, right? It's there in the RAM, and then bad things starts happening. So antivirus helps you to protect and detect viruses of certain nature, but not all viruses, right? So you need different mechanisms to protect your systems, your devices. For example, let's say laptop, you can have your host firewalls, right? You can have antiviruses, you can have endpoint protection devices. There are a lot of things you can configure in a laptop. Firewall will make sure that nobody can dial in from outside, right? Or you can only dial out certain ports, right? Nobody can FTP in. Viruses, antivirus will ensure that if suddenly something gets downloaded through the path, if it's a virus, you'll catch, right? Email spam filtering. So you need to have what we call as defense in depth. Don't just rely on one technology to protect, right? You need to have multiple technologies, multiple technical controls, and all the stuff to protect your system. Your house, right? You can't just lock your gate and door and say everything is secure, because you're a lot of precious items, right? You need to sometimes look at putting cameras. You need to put intrusion detection, because you have, let's say you have very precious items, and then you lock your cupboard, and then you have we can do a lot of things, right? That's a defense in depth. Keep as many barriers as possible from the attacker to the asset, so that they fail. And just one thing, if you have one thing, motivated attacker will defeat it.
Yeah, that's really good. That's really good to know, Suhasji. I like the way, Suhasji, that you have presented in various slides, where you are actually telling the basics of cybersecurity, where these words sometimes scare you, and you have beautifully explained them and made it really, really simple. So actually, I'm not a security guy, but I also managed to understand what all you presented. So I believe it would have been simple for students too. So I'll go to next question. Someone is asking, is there any way we can make a career in the defense field? So I believe where they say defense field is like a field in DRDO or a government organizations doing cybersecurity stuff.
Absolutely right. I think we need a lot more talent in our governments right now. As I said, India is being attacked. I don't know, if, 1 month back, you might have seen that there was a power outage in Mumbai, and there were some things fishy happening in Mumbai, and people suspected it could be happening because of some China altercations, right? So we need people to protect our nation now, right? If India is getting digital, tomorrow the ransomware they're doing for data, they will start doing ransomware for equipments. A farmer means people are not working in villages anymore, right? They're coming to cities. Everything is becoming smart, and now there may be robots coming in. There are drones. Look at, I don't know how many of you have seen this movie Uri, right? If you look at, there is a drone that
Yes.
helped them actually to get into Pakistan, into the stuff, right? So these
Correct.
technologies, who will develop? So you need a guy, means you need people like you, energetic people who can design these products securely, who can do this forensic analysis, who can protect the nation with the designing the next generation firewalls. If an attack happens, we need engineers who can do this forensic analysis. And sometimes you may have to attack back. You need engineers to go and maybe get the data from China also, right? So all these things
Correct.
is an opportunity. If you're good at security and want to help the nation, you are actually warriors, right? You don't have to fight the war with a gun anymore. If you can help the nation with these things, you are a cyber warrior.
It's more like a digital soldiers now.
Digital
So
soldiers,
as
yeah,
we are,
that's correct.
yeah. So that's what I think we are heading up to. There are few beautiful courses in IBM SkillsBuild program. So if in case you want to, it's for everyone. If in case you want to learn more about security stuff, please go through these courses. There is also one technical question has come where a student need to know by formatting or by again installing OS, can we protect system from supply chain attack?
That's a great question, right? So if you look at how a computer is designed, so formatting the OS is done, and you are protecting only the disk, correct? So it will only clean up the disk. Before a disk boots, there is BIOS, there is UEFI, BIOS, etc. What happens if your BIOS is tampered? That you don't have control. You don't even flash. Sometimes we don't even know that there is so much firmware, or you can say firmware is kind of software, low level software running before you actually access your disk. Now, if that is compromised in a supply chain attack, we have seen that happen in the real field, where people are now attacking the low level layers like firmware. And if you implant a malware there is no antivirus that can detect, because antivirus also detects only files on the disk. So that's a great question. So formatting the disks will help you, but if your supply chain has compromised other components of your firmware, right, we are dead. And that's where Make in India is important. And a lot of new technologies are coming up to verify your firmware, and a lot of cool things happening. That's a great question.
So the security is not in the PC when the system boots up. The security actually starts from the BIOS level, and that's where the attackers are targeting, because these are the places where we generally neglect and generally don't pay much attention in putting up the security stuff. So this could be one of the coolest thing to work on for all the students, to come up with a project, to come up with a kind of a system or a kind of a firmware detection mechanism, so that you can put some kind of a security in BIOS, where before the OS could be given control, you make sure that there isn't anything fishy in the system. So
yeah, that then HP is working a lot on, because we manufacture servers, right? We manufacture laptops. We are doing a lot of work on firmware security. And just go and Google Bloomberg Super Micro, right? Super Micro Bloomberg. What has happened is there was a small chip implanted in the motherboard, right? And this is a report available, and it is not firmware now. They're actually going into the hardware and tampering. They're putting in small chips inside in the motherboard, and you can do a lot of bad things, right, later on.
Yep, that's really good. That's really good. The next one is where to practice. So I think we have covered this. So in order for you to practice, you probably need to go through this Kali Linux, which Suhas Ji was mentioning. First, go through the courses, and these courses will actually tell you which platform you should choose and where should you practice, and start reading about security first before you get into the practice world, because it also depends that which sort of section or which section you are interested in, and then they will give you, the course will certainly give you guidelines that which system you need to install, how do you need to test it on Windows or in Linux or in different operating systems. So that should be enough. There's also a list given by Rahul in the chat window, so you can go through this list. This list is from SkillsBuild IBM platform, where you can see that. There's one more technical question. How denial of service attack work?
Yeah, so denial of service attack works in multiple different ways, right? For example, let's say I'm an attacker, I want to compromise your web application. I can send so many requests from my machine to consume all the resources so that a valid user cannot log in. That's one form of attack, right? That is denial of service. There is something called distributed denial of service attack. So what I do is I hack into multiple of these small systems like IoT devices, cameras are all connected to the internet. And then I use the small compute to attack, right? All these compromised devices will send messages to one system. And then network traffic becomes very high and then network will collapse, right? And your system also will collapse. That's distributed denial of service attack. So these are consuming the resources. The other way of doing it is sometimes even sending a small packet in a malformed packet, right, not properly formed, can bring down the system because it will crash. That's another denial of service attack. So these are 3 or 4 ways, right, where you can bring down the system, and this is how it works normally.
That's really good. Thank you. And there's also one more question. What skills are required to start bug bounty journey?
Ethical hacking, right? That's what I talked about. Bug bounty means you are actually finding issues. And you need to have web application security skills, SQL injection, cross-site system that we talked about. You need to be aware of the tools like Burp is one tool, Zap proxy is another tool, and OpenVAS is another open source tool. So you need to know how to do the vulnerability scanning that I talked about, pen testing, ethical hacking, web applications, and all these things you need to be aware of, the tools as well as the technology and how it works inside. And once you are good at it, you can participate in bug bounty and make some money, right? If you find the issues, and you need to be really good at finding issues, and that will take some time. You need to be interested, passionate. If you look at one of the things that I had said in the attitude part, right? Patience, process, all these things, when you acquire, you can make money just through bug bounty also. Bug bounty for others, what does bug bounty mean is, let's assume that I want to find security issues before I release a product. So I will ask people to come and hack into the system. It's like ethical hacking. These guys are good people who want to find issues before hacker finds it. And if they find issues, we pay them money. So that is bug bounty.
Yep. So there's one more thing that you can do to be good at bug bounty journey is actually to start coding. Once you start coding, you will realize what are the pitfalls and what are the places where people generally tend to miss the common parts of validation and verification, like Suhas ji covered in his webinar, where he was mentioning that if you don't do a proper validation in your input text box, this is the place where you are leaving a loophole for someone to get in and attack the system. So if you do these kind of practice, like he was saying, if you practice on writing the code, you will realize what are the places where systems can go wrong, and this will make your journey really smooth. Okay, so the next one is what is identity theft? This is something which I think Suhas ji covered, that someone is stealing your identity and someone is pretending to be you in the system. So this is your identity theft. So they steal your, simple example would be stealing your username and password. And if I go into the system and if I log in using your username and password, I would be you. So this is like stealing your identity in this case. So next one is
and another one more thing. Just one, right? You can steal your, let's say, fingerprints and other stuff, right? There are sophisticated identity stealing techniques now. That's where Aadhaar has to be protected. If all our fingerprints reaches China, right? You don't know what bad things can happen. And if you are in Telugu, right? There is a movie, Agent Atreya. I'm from Karnataka, but Agent Atreya, just watch that movie, how they manipulate fingerprints and using fingerprints of dead people, they actually frame them rather than the criminal. So they change the fingerprint and they use, that's also identity theft, right? License, stealing your identity and your license details, etc. All that also comes under identity theft. I just wanted to add that part. Yeah. Good. What you explained is
that's really good to know. The next one is is there any suggestion for us to protect our smart devices? I
Yeah, I
think
think
probably it's the
passwords.
phone
Yeah,
and the watches.
yeah,
Other
yeah.
than
Means
passwords, yeah.
passwords, antivirus, means normal things, right? Hygiene is update your passwords, ensure it is locked. Don't install unnecessary apps. If you have these apps that you don't trust, just delete it. Keep it clean. Don't store any private data in your mobile phones, because if you lose it, it can be an issue. But take backups of your data. If you keep something in your mobile phone, that's important. Antivirus, install any free antivirus and update your patches whenever you get a prompt. Don't delay it, because sometimes it protects, right? Just do these basic things, you'll be fine. And don't click on any link or any fake messages. That's phishing. Don't fall trap to phishing.
Oh, that's really good. Thank you. And I think, yeah, the next one is, what skills are required for cyber competition like capture the flag?
Same skill, like ethical hacker, right? When you have capture the flag, you have a web application, vulnerable web application. You have to find issues, right? You have to find as many issues as possible. So whatever we discussed last time, thorough knowledge about how web application works, use of tools, everything you need to know.
Okay, and can you suggest us any good free antivirus that you think is pretty good at this point of time and covers majority of the walls in our system?
I think just go to, because I would not want to recommend one. Just go to Google, look at the star rating, how many people have downloaded it, and pick the one that you are comfortable with. Right. See, all these free tools will have only basic features, because eventually they want people to use and pay money. But you could pick, because based on Android or right iOS, you may have to go look at the star rating antivirus and pick that works for you, right, with the highest star.
Okay,
That highest
good.
download.
Right. So there's someone who has raised hand, Smriddhi. Smriddhi, do you want to add anything here?
Yes, sir. Actually, I was unable to send my message in a chat box. Actually, I have
Oh.
certified with EC Council's ethical hacker, cybersecurity ethical hacker. But when I'm trying to get a job, but they are asking me for a, they're asking me for the experience. But so what should I do now?
Okay, so this is where, right, as I said, getting a job, you need to be well networked, right? Well networked first. You need to apply to the right positions, second. And when you get that one chance, you need to be ready to crack it. Okay. Now, a CEH, Certified Ethical Hacking, is a good way to tell the companies that you have the basic knowledge. And some jobs will require you to have that basic knowledge. Now, how do you get a job? One thing, where are you? Which part of India are you from?
I'm from Maharashtra, Pune.
Okay, so as I said, right, for example, in Bangalore, there we have something called ISC Square organization. So people can join that group for 500 rupees, right, annual membership fee. It's a non-profit organization, just like SmartGaon, etc. So fun. There'll be a lot of positions they will put in. You need to look at that and then apply, right? You need to keep applying. If you're interested in cybersecurity, you need to keep applying to the right jobs. And you need to be ready to clear the interviews, right? CEH is a 150 theory question, but you need to have a lot of practical experience also.
So,
okay, so there is no magic bullet of how you can get a job, right? Just be patient. And means I'm telling all of you guys this, right, from my experience. Life is a marathon, right? And just because you lost out in the first 1 year, right, because you are focused and trying to do something, don't give hope, because in the marathon you can run fast towards the later stage and overtake and reach your goal. It's not about overtaking, in the sense, it's not about salary, it's not about anything, but still achieve your goals. So just, if you are passionate, just keep doing the right things, right? As I said, keep learning. You should not waste time as students. Okay. Absolutely, it's a competitive world. And if you want to succeed, you need to have the right attitude and right aptitude. And if you have the passion, you will succeed because there is enough opportunity. This is a
Thank you,
message
sir.
outside cybersecurity. Okay.
That's
Go
very
on.
rightly said, Suhasji. It's quite important, and this is where it's a common issue among all the new students to not be focused in the studies, so they get distracted. I mean, it's very common. So it's very rightly said.
Yeah, and have fun. Means I think you should have fun, but you should know if you're very serious in your career, right? Please get back that 1 to 2 hours every day where you think you're wasting your money. Sorry, your money is okay, right? Time.
Time.
Wasting your time. You have to find that 1 to 2 hours and invest on yourself learning, because that's what is going to
Correct.
give you a long career.
Correct. Absolutely. There is a
I
new
don't.
question which has popped up. Sorry, I stopped you in between. Were you adding
No,
something more,
I don't know
Suhasji?
whether I answered her question, but if she, yeah, I don't know whether it was helpful. Do you have anything else? Who asked the
Samriddhi.
question?
So
Samriddhi, yeah.
Samriddhi, did it answer your question? Are you happy with the
Yeah,
answer?
thank you, sir. It was helpful. I will try. Thank you, sir.
Don't give up. I'm
All
telling
right.
you, no, don't give up. You seem to have the right attitude because you picked up CH and all that stuff. Don't give up. And as I said, right, focus on the fundamentals, right? You go pick up a Udemy course, beautiful courses for 500 rupees. I'm telling you, when you're walking, learn, make notes, all of you, right? Understand the fundamentals and you'll all do well.
Sure, sir.
Brilliant.
Okay.
Yeah. The next question, Suhasji, we'll try to wrap it up everything in next 4 or 5 minutes. So I'll just take next 2 more questions. First is, how does cybersecurity police catch attackers while attackers use multiple protections?
Yeah, so see, cybersecurity police, you don't know what tools they use also. Okay. And we use, for example, right, there are laws within India, with all over the world, that, for example, let's say you have made a call, right? The calls will be recorded in some place. If needed, they know how to crack it, right? How to crack and open and do all that stuff. If your laptop is confiscated, they have the tools. Even if you have deleted a file, they can recover some part of the tools, because when you delete a file, it doesn't really delete in your hard drive, right? So they have all these tools, as I said, right? The forensic capability, forensic tools, software analysis tools, disk drive tools, through which they can get the data out. So that those tools maybe we don't even have access.
Yeah, it's like an admin has got a privilege of everything. So they know they have everything. So they can
They have more
do most
sophisticated
of the
tools.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, most of the stuff which you probably didn't get into. So they certainly can reach many things and far beyond to what a normal hacker can.
Exactly. And they know the technology which goes behind a phone, right? For example, they know which operating system does what. So as hackers, as protectors, we may not know that when I delete, it doesn't delete in one particular space, because it will be in recycle bin, for example, right? Where is a recycle bin in your mobile phone? They know. And they know how to get that data also, because they use sophisticated tools.
Correct. And the next one is, you said in ransomware key is needed, but what about stenography? There is no key required. How to identify and get protected from stenography?
See, steganography is okay. For people who don't know what is steganography, it is like, okay, I am sending a message, right? Let's say I have an image and I want to send some message to, let's say, Rohan. And what I can do is, inside that message, I can say that every fifth character or fifth byte, I'm going to encode certain things. And the message will look like I'm sending my photo, but the photo is slightly changed, right? Because I have encoded certain information which Rohan can understand. That is steganography, right? Hiding in a normal image, like image or video, and sending it out so that the receiver or somebody looking at it doesn't see any difference, because the colors may slightly change. So that is steganography. The steganography, yes, there is no key involved, because it can be considered as encoding, not encryption. Tough to detect steganography unless you know the signature of the file, right? For example, if I know that this file, the hash value has to be this, and if it has changed, I can detect that it could be they could be using steganography. Otherwise, there is no easy way of detecting steganography. It has to be done through some pattern matching. If you know that there is a pattern, you can look at in that image, or it can be done through signature matching, because you know this file has to have this hash, and if changes, it could be tampered with, right? Using the steganography technique if it is being transmitted.
Okay.
So that's at a high level how it works.
All right. Okay. So that brings us to the end of all the questions that I had in the chat window. Before I forget, I mean, Suhas, this has been a really, really good session. It's been one of the greatest session I've ever been into, where the details have been given to a person who doesn't know anything about security and get more details around it. I'm very thankful to you that you took out from your precious time schedule and you have given us such a valuable information. And the whole SmartGaon team thanks you from REACHA Foundation plus SmartGaon that you have come forward and helps the society. So that's really, really good to know, Suhasji, and really thankful for your presentation.
Oh, thanks a lot. And yeah, I'm happy if you guys found it useful, because very tough to teach or to talk to people when you can't see your faces, right? I'm just talking.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know whether you guys are getting it or not, but I try to keep it simple so that everybody gets something out of this talk. And yeah, happy if I have achieved my objective.
You did it, sir. You did it brilliantly. You did it. And I'm sure a lot of students have benefited from your presentation. For everyone's benefit, this session will be online. This will be available in SmartGaon Facebook page, and it would also be in YouTube. It will also be in YouTube for you to refer it later on if you want to. And if you have any more questions, feel free to send it to, or you can post it in as a reply in Facebook page. We will try to get the answers, and we can certainly reply you back on that one as well. So Rahul has also kindly given his email address. You can use his email address and send all your questions as well over to that email address. So thanks everyone. Thank you very much, Suhasji, once again. And thank you all the students and teachers who have attended this session. And they have really made it a big success. Thank you all.
Stay safe. Yeah.
Stay safe and have a lovely weekend.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye-bye.